Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Fuji GF110 f2. I'm pleased to announce the release of my Capture One and Lightroom presets, Metamorphic Portraits, The Sound of Silver, and Rangefinder. These are all available for purchase at my website. Go to kevindealphotography.com or check out a link in the description below. And now, on to today's episode. $110mm. On medium format, it gives you about the same perspective as 85mm on full frame. $110 is an admired focal length for its compression and subject isolation. It can pull mountains in closer, it can pull skyscrapers in closer, but the genre it's best known for is portraits. Specifically, headshots. This lens has an impeccable reputation among many GFX enthusiasts. But in this episode, we're going to explore the 110 and see if it's just good for headshots, if it's a one-trick pony, or if it can be used for other genres of photography. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. The GFX system is known for its exceptional image quality, and this wouldn't be possible without glass to pair up with it. While people can debate all day long which focal lengths are their favorites, when it comes to sharpness and bokeh, several people's opinions land at the Fuji GF110 f2. This lens turns 7 years old this year, and I've had the pleasure to use it for the last 3. I'm sure many of you who watched the slideshow at the beginning of this video were wowed by the technical abilities of this lens. There's a lot to love, but like all lenses, there are some things that I don't like about it. We're going to dive into those in today's episode. But first, let's go over the specs. The Fuji GF110mm f2R LMWR is an autofocus lens for the Fuji GFX system. It utilizes an aperture ring to take advantage of its aperture range, which is f2 to f22. It also has a control and automatic mode on the aperture ring. The WR designation means this lens is weather sealed. It has an angle of view of 27.9 degrees. It has a minimum focusing distance of 2.95 feet or 90 centimeters. Its maximum magnification is 0.16. Its optical design is 14 elements in 9 groups, and it has 9 rounded aperture blades. It does not have image stabilization, and it has a common 77mm front filter thread size. Its dimensions are 3.71 by 4.94 inches or 94.3 by 125.5 millimeters. Its weight is 2.22 pounds or 1,010 grams, and it comes in at a street price of $2,799 US dollars. So I use the Fuji GFX system on my most personal projects, and a project that I was eyeing for quite a while was based off the band Rammstein and that gunmetal look that you can see on their skin, but I wanted to do it with a model. I know it's not exactly original to take something beautiful and juxtapose it into something that isn't beautiful, but that's what I wanted the theme of this shoot to be. And right at the front and center of it was the 110mm f2. Now I did also shoot the 45 on this and some Hasselblad film, but the primary objective was to get beautiful sharp images, to pull out that griminess, and of course the sharpness of this 110 coupled with the beautiful sensor of the GFX 100S got that job done. A special thanks to the beautiful Belarusian model Alina and my team who did a fantastic job on this shoot. So the specs of this lens are no doubt impressive, and the images that I showed at the beginning of this episode demonstrated its abilities. After using it for the last 3 years, I feel qualified to talk about what I like about it and what I don't like about it. First and foremost, the image quality on this lens is insanely breathtaking. It's definitely a lens that will remind you that you are shooting on an expensive medium format system. I've caught myself staring at my screen before in awe of the quality of images it produced. The sharpness is exceptional, in some cases too exceptional. We'll get more into that in a bit. The bokeh is liquid smooth, which is what a lot of people are looking for. This is no doubt a lens that thrives on subject isolation. The minimum focusing distance will allow to get super close to your subject and get as much bokeh as one would ever need. It has an aperture ring on it, which Fuji purists love. I'll put that under the pros because I know I'm in the minority of people who could take or leave the aperture ring, but there's something for everyone, as I can simply turn this feature off and use the back dial next to my thumb, which is what I do on both my Canon RF and Fuji X system cameras. For the manual focusing types, I'm happy to report the focus ring on this is large and smooth and easy to turn. It's a tank. I've always been critical of the finish of many models of Fuji bodies, including many of the GFX bodies I've tried. They ding easily, they scratch easily, but my GF lenses have been the opposite. While I'd never encourage you to do this if you ever needed a weapon in a fight against Wes Mantooth and the KQHS Channel 9 Evening News team in the trenches of a back alley in San Diego in the middle of the afternoon, I'd like my chances with the GF110 f2. Any Anchorman fans out there? Nobody got that reference? I'm just old? Okay, I get it. It goes on rebate often. This is good because if you are patient 2 to 3 times a year, you can get like $500 off this lens. When I bought mine, I wasn't aware that Fuji did this and I paid almost $3,000. Now, it's on par with other $3,000 lenses that I've used, so if you need to get one and are impatient, it's worth that price. But if you buy this lens on rebate, it is an incredible value, as I think it could easily sell for more. The AF speed in conjunction with my slow Fuji GFX system doesn't suck, which for medium format and Fuji is a good thing. Now, shooting medium format is simply a slower process. Speaking in relative terms, the 110 is actually a pretty fast AF lens. I haven't tried mine on the newer GFX 102 or GFX 100S2, but I would imagine based on the fact that other lenses acquire focus more accurately and quickly that this 110 would behave the same way. It has a WR designation, which means it is weather sealed. Definitely something I would expect for the price, but it's there, so we will put it under the pros. While this lens is insanely breathtaking, there are some things that I simply don't like about it. It's huge. There's no way you're taking this on vacation with you unless the point of your vacation is photography that has the best quality. In my previous reviews, I praised both the GF63 and the GF45mm lenses for being so small, it almost felt like you were shooting on a full frame. This GF110 is one of those GFX lenses that reminds you that you do in fact shoot on a bulky medium format system. Simply put, from a size perspective, this guy dominates my bag. This next commentary is more of a note about the focal length. This lens is kind of a one-trick pony. It's narrow, and narrow is limiting. Unless what you're shooting is far away, it's next to impossible to escape isolation with this lens. Couple that with the fact that medium format already has a more shallow depth of field than full frame or APS-C, and even if you stop down a bit, a lot of your images are gonna look the same. If you're one of those photographers who likes to shoot portraits wide open with HSS on your flash and an ND filter on the front element, this is the lens for you. The more time I spend with this lens, the further back I find myself going and the more I want to stop down. When I first got this lens, I did what a lot of people do. I opened it up for a headshot and got close, but I became a bit fatigued on that and have been exploring other ways to use this lens. I don't feel like this lens is a versatile focal length / depth of field combination, and therefore I would classify it under a specialist lens instead of a utility lens, and that could be a con for some of you. While I admire the sharpness of this lens, if you take beauty or headshots, you will be retouching the hell out of your images because you will literally see everything, especially when you pair it with the 100 megapixel sensors in the GFX system. I do think in some instances there's something to be said for softening an image. If you pick up a fashion magazine, oftentimes these images have this soft look to them, and a lens this sharp is going to require a bit of post-production to dial in something like that. This lens does not have image stabilization, which is not a huge issue for me because I shoot on the GFX 100S, which has in-body image stabilization, but if you shoot on one of the older GFX models, depending on the shutter speed you shoot at, not having image stabilization could be problematic for you. Another thing I want to talk about with this lens is when you move it back and forth, there's something that moves back and forth in here. It rattles around, and that may be perceived as a con. Apparently it's just a floating element. It's nothing to be concerned about. I was freaking out when I bought my lens because I thought there was something wrong with it. I quickly found out that it was part of the design, but if you don't like things moving around and shaking inside your lens, maybe this is a con for you, but it's a thing, and if you spend almost $3,000, it's a thing you may very well want to know about. The GF110 f2 definitely has what I would consider to be a loud motor. While you're probably not using this lens for something discreet like street photography, you're probably using it for portraits. It is something you want to keep in mind if you're using the newer bodies, and maybe you want to use this for video. Speaking of using this guy for video, I'm not much of a videographer on the GFX system. That's not what I bought it for, but I did use this lens on my GFX body for a project where I needed 4 cameras and I ran short of cameras, so the GFX had to do. And as you can see right here, it actually looks really beautiful. I baked in Provia Standard in there. So if you're using one of the newer bodies and you're trying to pair this guy up to get good shots, I think it's going to give you good shots for video. My final thoughts on this lens are that while 45mm is actually my favorite focal length for the GFX system, there are times when I need to be narrow, I need surgical sharpness, I require dreamy bokeh with exceptional subject isolation. In that situation, I reach for the Fuji GF110 f2. And if you find yourself in that situation, I personally feel that there's no better lens for the Fuji GFX system. That does it for today's episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. Do you own the Fuji GF110 f2? Tell me about it in the comments below. Do you favor the 81.7 better? Do you like both? Tell me about that in the comments below. And if you like this channel, I humbly ask you to click the subscribe button below. And if you like the presets that I use on this episode, you can buy them on my website. They're available for both Lightroom and Capture One. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.